Welcome agents. So there are plenty of YouTube videos talking about the changes the Division 2 should make in order for it to be successful at launch when compared to the Division, including a video I did myself about time to kill, the skill gap and more, but I haven't seen many videos that talk about the positive effects or positive aspects of the Division which the Division 2 should take and if need be, perfect. In today's video, however, I hope to fill that gap and give you 4 things the Division 2 should take from the Division. As always, if you enjoy this video, please hit the like button below, and again, let's try and hit 200 likes, that would be amazing. If you're interested in some Eat, Sleep, Slay, Repeat merch, there will be a link below to my new line of clothing. With all of that said, let's get into the video. Setting. Okay, so we know the Division 2 is going to be set in Washington DC, and it will have a very different feel to it compared with the Division. However, aside from the actual location, the setting of the Division, i.e. the cold, barren streets of Manhattan, still fascinates me to this day, especially if you play on survival. It's very common that people tweet with a new graffiti or new location within the open world, which hasn't been spotted before, and that's pretty amazing considering the game is coming up to 3 years old. Manhattan provided the perfect backdrop to the story of the Division, and this was about survival. This was about having nothing and having no one, and the cold, eerie, abandoned Manhattan City with the immense attention to detail set the scene perfectly. In many ways, I'm very sad to see this go in the Division 2, and I am sure a lot of you agents will feel the same as well. Of course, with the Division 2, the setting is the complete opposite in many ways, and the story has progressed from one of survival to one of revival. Washington DC is set in the scorching heat of the summer, with 6 biomes to play around in, unlike the Division which only had 2 biomes. The Washington DC map will be 20% bigger than Manhattan, so it's likely we will still be finding new, interesting designs in 3 years' time again. The setting will be bright, more alive than the Division, more active but just as dangerous. The change in environment mimics the story just like it did within the Division, and I expect we will see some dynamic weather as well, but that has not been confirmed yet. The Division 2 really has to capture the heat of the environment if it's going to be successful as a Division, and that's not going to be easy. In the Division you had snow and ice, and you could see the breath from your agent's mouth. These things really gave you a sense of a cold hostility in Manhattan, but it's going to be a lot harder to portray scorching heat. So I'd hope that they'd add something to make us remember, for example the consumption of water on a regular basis to stop dehydration or overheating. The setting for the Division is truly my favourite setting in any game I have ever played, and I could absolutely get lost in it to this day. I just hope the Division 2 captures us in the same way Manhattan did. Survival. So you may or may not have seen my speculation video on survival returning in the Division 2, but renamed Survival Islands, and just to make you aware, I have now copyrighted that name, just in case it does come out in the Division 2. And with the location being Roosevelt Island. Now I made that video not because I thought this might happen, which I do, but because I really want survival to return, and I'm sure it will be. Survival to me is one of those game modes that I enjoy every time I play, whether it be the PvE option or the PvEVP option. There is no other game that I can think of that has a mode quite like survival, and like the Dark Zone, it is unique to the Division and is one of the main reasons people continue to play the Division, myself included. Most runs I make take well over an hour, and I can think of no other game mode ever that has required so much of my time that I was completely happy with. And for anyone talking about the rewards not scaling with the amount of time you need to invest and the risk involved, whilst I understand it and in many ways I agree with you, I don't see survival as a game mode I go into expecting to get the best or the most gear. It's an experience like no other. Now survival was when we first met the Hunters, the most formidable enemy within the Division, and it still gets the blood pumping and the nerves jangling today. Survival was kind of like the Division's take on the now popular Battle Royale mode, but I much prefer survival over any Battle Royale game right now. Survival did so many things right, and it was exactly what it set out to be, the ultimate survival mode. Starting with only a pistol and being infected from the green poison, you have to eat, drink water, find clothing to protect you from the cold and onset of hypothermia, find weapons to ensure you can face the enemy factions, craft a flare gun so you can extract from the Dark Zone, and when you finally have found the antivirals within the Dark Zone, which could be the cure for the dollar few which is currently consuming you, you have to extract whilst being hunted by the hunters. The devs have not confirmed survival is coming back within the Division 2, but Julian Garrity has hinted at this mode returning. Probably not going to be at launch, but likely in DLC later in the game. Aside from possibly the Dark Zone, survival is one mode that has to come back within the Division 2. New and improved. Build diversity. What kept me playing the Division for so long? It has to be what feels like unlimited builds within the game. The amount of build diversity within this game is amazing, and I still feel that I could log on today and create a build I've never created before, which is crazy when you consider that most of my time has been spent making builds for PvP and theory crafting, and I have well over 100 days I believe at this point in time, which is around 2,500 to 3,000 hours within the Division. Of course, there will always be a meta build that the majority of people use, and I'm looking at you, Nomad, right now. But build diversity is what makes the Division in many ways. We know that gear diversity will be coming in the Division 2, but I just hope the devs have not simplified it in a way that we are restricted with the builds we want to make and experiment with. With each new update, we've had new builds and new gear, and that has kept both the PvE and PvP interesting. If you search on YouTube, and maybe do it after the video, I wouldn't recommend doing it now, watch till the end of course. If you search on YouTube for Division builds, the list of videos are endless. There's endless videos from me, there's endless videos from countless Division YouTubers. And that's for a reason. There's simply an endless amount of builds you can make. And if you're good enough, there is no build really that you can't have fun with and be successful with, even with the current state of the Division. If you look back on my Division library, you'll see a build video that I did with all purple gear within the Dark Zone, I believe, where I did really, really well. Actually, it might have been in Last Stand, and I did really, really well. And that just shows, no matter what build you've got, if you know what you're doing, then you can do well. And that's what this game still offers to this day. What I want the Division 2 to take from this is how the Division was before classified gear sets, because that's when build diversity was at its best, in my opinion. We know that gear sets or brand sets are coming in the Division 2 along with classified brand sets, and we've got a good idea on how it's going to work. Now, as I said, build diversity is one of the strongest elements within the Division 2, and within the Division, I'm sure, and it's the grind to get the gear that makes the gear building that much more rewarding. The Division 2 should adopt a similar style of build diversity as Update 1.7, and adopt a gear rarity style that would be much more aligned with the early days of the Division, when getting a high-end piece of gear was actually really, really rare. Let's hope the devs do this with exotics and legendary weapons and gear within the Division 2. So, build diversity. The Division has an endless amount, and I hope the Division 2 follows suit. Level 1 to 30. This might seem like an odd one, but for anyone who has multiple characters within the Division, or for anyone who remembers the first time they went through the campaigns from levels 1 to 30, then I'm sure you will agree that the game felt absolutely great. Like a lot of other games within this genre, you start off with very little, and you have to tackle the campaign by collecting gear, weapons and resources until you reach level 30 and hit the end game. Now, I'm not going to talk about end game for the Division because the devs have already confirmed that the experience within the Division 2, or the end game experience within the Division 2, has been worked on, and I have a lot of faith in the devs that they will do a good job this time around. What I really hope is the devs make the experience from levels 1 to 30 within the Division 2 feel as good as it does within the Division. Even now I sometimes just delete an old character and go back through the campaign. Not because I think the story is great, which I think it is, by the way, and that would certainly be in this list if it was a best of 5, for example, because I do think the story is pretty good, but because I love the feeling of scavenging for better gear and better weapons to become stronger. It's very much survival without the crazy storm and hunters and virus constantly taking your life. The scavenging aspect in the open world of the Division is one of the best there is, and I really think the Division 2 needs to incorporate this from the get-go. Of course, we know the Division 2 is not about survival, but more about rebuilding the world. It's more about revival. But I have a suspicion that we will lose our watches at the start, and we'll have to recover these along with the gear, weapons and our new power specialist weapons. This to me would bring back the Division feel that we are used to, where you have to grind to become powerful and face up against the more difficult NPCs. If you haven't leveled a character from 1 to 30 for a long time, I highly recommend you do this, because it really shows the Division at its peak, when it's at its best. I just hope the Division 2 can replicate this as we play through the campaign in March and level our characters to 30. So there you go, agents. Hopefully you did really enjoy this video. I'd appreciate a like on the video. It does really help me a lot. And I'd also appreciate a comment down below. If you've got any suggestions on videos that you would like me to do, please leave it in the comments below. And of course, if you've got any points that you would like to add to this video, if you felt as though there was something that possibly the Division 2 should have over one of the ideas that I brought forward, then please leave it down below. I do read all of my comments. I'm sorry I can't comment back to everyone, but I do like all of my comments as well, and I do read them all. So hopefully that will be enough. Of course, your support has been truly appreciated as always, and until the next one, Epic out.